Daniel McConnell is political editor with the Irish Examiner, and he wrote a piece at the weekend about the state of the streets of the capital city. Daniel, for people who didn't read it, they missed out. What point were you making?
The point I was making is that I've lived in Dublin for the last 18 years of my life in the city centre or close to it. And I've noticed over the last couple of years a discernible decrease in the cleanliness, friendliness, general state of the place. And what I did in the piece was I charted my route from home into the office, kind of almost street by street, and just set out just kind of almost every street you went to, it got dirtier, got filthier, glass. I've had to replace more tyres on my bike because of broken glass on the street. You're just going past piles of rubbish, and you're seeing manky kind of pavements all over the place, and you're seeing, I think, and that's during the daytime. What you're seeing at nighttime is even worse. And then you kind of pack it all together and say, well, you can't get a taxi at nighttime anymore. Dublin's a really expensive city to live in. It's a really expensive city to come visit. And if we're trying to offer and compete with other cities, we're not at the races at all. And the point is making from a slightly political perspective is that, for the last 3 or 4 years, Dublin City councillors have voted to cut the property tax by 15%, i.e. starving their own council of much needed resources. I'd much rather councillors don't do the populist thing. Don't appeal to your base. Spend the money and clean up the streets.
What about people listening who think, was it not ever thus? Like when you get into the inner city, was it not always a bit grimy?
They've always been a bit, as one of my friends, said, Dublin's, it's the city that never sweeps. But there's probably an element of that. But what I saw after the financial crash, you saw a rebirth of Dublin city centre. New bars, new restaurants, new cafes, everything opening up, and the city definitely cleaned up. You saw the repavement of streets like Grafton Street or whatever, and Henry Street and Mary Street. The city was sparkling, as one of my pals who lives in Hong Kong said to me repeatedly when he came home. That is all gone. You see hollowed out streets, you see pavements, as I said, are absolutely just manky. And what was really disappointing, Kieran, was that in 2020, when we were told to embrace outdoor living, through COVID-19, the system and the city were not able to cope with it. And the solution from Dublin City Council was not to put more resources on the street, but was to close public plazas, like closing off Portobello Plaza because they couldn't cope with the dirt on the, in terms of the bins. That's just bonkers. And that legacy, I think, has continued. And what we're seeing is this kind of failure to just keep the city clean. Now, there's a personal responsibility on people not to leave the place messy and litter. But something is not working in terms of the system. There's a much broader problem, I accept, when it comes to vacant units and all the rest of it. That's a much wider economic point of view. But certainly, we can do something as a city about the litter. And that was ultimately the point I was trying to make. If you're going to have a stake in your city, and if you're going to be involved, yes, there is that element of personal responsibility. But you also have to say, if you're going to rely on the people to run the city properly, you'd want to see it being run properly. And the point being made is a lot of people have been in touch with me, the local and European elections will be in May 2024. It's not that far away. I would think there's a real opportunity for our elected politicians to grasp this issue of cleaning the city up, and it could very well become a major election issue, because I get reactions to articles, columns particularly, all the time. I've never seen a reaction to the column like I wrote on Saturday. And it's one of those things that people are just really pissed off. Yeah. And forgive me about it, they are just really, really annoyed about it.